We do a lot of professional service industries, accounting, finance, law, engineering, and manufacturing, or we're pretty strong in those verticals. But we'll do, small companies we have some clients that are a single attorney law firm
Okay.
and all the way up to 2 to 500 endpoints.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Tom Kirkham. He's the CEO of Kirkham IronTech. Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, glad to be here. It's all my pleasure.
Yeah, excited to have you. So, Tom, why don't you start and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been in technology for getting close to 40 years, just to date myself a little bit. And the first several years, 15, give or take, I was in software development. So I won a few Microsoft Design Awards during that time. And then the company got caught up in the .com, so I ended up being unemployed. And so I started this company a little over 20 years ago, give or take. And what Kirkham IronTech does, is a managed security services provider as well as a managed services provider. So we handle the cybersecurity needs and the IT investment of small to medium-sized businesses. We're getting more and more larger clients because they're finding it more cost-effective and in some ways better to outsource some of those things or most of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we do. And when it comes to security, this may be of interest to you, is because of a data breach. 8 years ago, I was visited by the FBI to let me know that I'm on an ISIS kill list. And that is a seminal event in my life. It was the capper for a lot of tragedy for over a couple of years during that period of time. And so that was kind of the dessert, but it refocused my passion around data security and securing our clients and, of course, securing our company. And so.
Well, that was a bit of a drop. Holy cow. So, well, I appreciate you sharing that, with me and trusting that information with me. So, tell me a little bit more, kind of about Kirkham and IronTech. So, Kirkham IronTech. Tell me a little bit more kind of about what you guys do. Is there certain industries that you tend to, do more cybersecurity work in?
Yeah, we do a lot of professional service industries, accounting, finance, law, engineering, and manufacturing, or we're pretty strong in those verticals. But we'll do, small companies we have some clients that are a single attorney law firm.
Okay.
And all the way up to 2 to 500 endpoints. So that's kind of our sweet spot. Average client size is probably in that 20 to 50 range.
Mm-hmm.
We have installations all over North America.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we might have actually some endpoints in China now. So.
Wow. Okay. That's fascinating. So, I'm curious with the cybersecurity industry, do you tend to see people engaging with Kirkham IronTech, before there's an issue or after there's an issue? Because I know that, it could be bad.
Yeah. That's a great question, because what we do, our job is to make sure you don't get breached in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we've got a marvelous success rate. It's at 100% right now. I hope I can always say that. But I know that may not be realistic, because there's no such thing as bulletproof security, right? If the NSA can be breached, anyone can be breached. And we take a, security is job one approach. So in other words, when prospects come to us, let me back up and talk about the incident response specialty.
Mm-hmm.
When a client is under a breach, under an attack, that's really not our forte. That's a whole different deal with incident response. And if they're under attack and they're not a client of ours, we don't have our tools. We don't understand the network. We're not going to negotiate for ransom, crisis management, PR, and all of that stuff. So that's a whole different specialty.
Okay.
Like I said, my job is to make sure it doesn't happen in the first place, because it's a whole lot cheaper to spend money on defense rather than waiting until something happens to do something about it. And any good leader or manager in an organization understands that. And the ones that don't, we spend a great deal of our time on what I refer to as governance issues. Your audience may know it as administrative controls, right? Or policies and procedures around passwords and not reusing passwords. And so we spend a lot of time really understanding our clients' culture, because there's a good chance in almost every instance we know as much about their culture as any vendor by far, because we're engaged with them each and every single day. So that gives us an ability to say, okay, well, let's get some continuous cybersecurity awareness training in here, and we'll help you on the management side. So you'll see how everyone's doing, and you'll determine who you may need to do coaching with. You get your overall score, safety score. Hopefully it'll be all in the green for your company, but if not, you know what to work on. So that's just some of the things we do. But rather than treating cybersecurity as an add-on to IT, and this is important when you're talking to MSPs especially, but even MSSPs, IT now is an add-on to cybersecurity. In other words, cybersecurity should lead, not investments in IT. Cybersecurity is a little bit of a hassle. And society, the whole world society, has spent the last 40 years sacrificing security in the name of efficiency and productivity. And so part of my job is to educate people and saying, look, there's a better way to do this. This is the right way to do it now.
Especially to, like you said, taking a defensive approach rather than having to, or, protecting yourself prior to an attack, essentially, and educating on that.
Yeah. I mean, you replace your tires when they're worn out before you have a flat. You just go down the list, and it's really just preventative measures to dramatically lower the client's risk profile. So we go through an assessment or an audit of all their systems and say, okay, here's an absolute baseline for security, and you're not there. So we got to get you to at least baseline right away. And then we'll look at IT and other stuff too, and then see about the managerial, leadership, cultural aspects of it as well, and do a real in-depth analysis on the client depending on their size.
Yeah. And that analysis and integration that you talked about, kind of including coaching and part of, the process of that Kirkham IronTech includes in their, onboarding of the clients. Do you think that those are some of the ways that Kirkham is really able to stand out from its competition?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know of too many people that are talking about it from a holistic standpoint.
Yeah.
When we talk to clients, we're using benchmarking. So I know that research says that in the professional services industry, not manufacturing, but professional services, they should spend roughly 10% of their annual budget or their gross revenue. 10% should be their budget for IT and cybersecurity. And of that, 10% should be spent on cybersecurity defense. So if we have a client that says, well, I'm doing a better job than that, we're only spending 5%. Well, wait a minute. Let's think about that. What are you missing? Maybe you're not maximizing your profitability because you're underinvesting in IT. There's certainly a good chance that if you're underinvesting in cybersecurity, you've got significant security gaps that need to be looked at. So it's a reverse of the mindset to say, hey, if you can run and you've got your risk profile's down real low and you're maximizing your IT investment and you're only spending 7% of your gross revenue, I'm cool with that. But we got to see if there's gaps first. That's the first thing you should think if you're underspending what your peers are spending. Okay. So we spend a lot of time on that, and, to get them thinking a little bit better, because, the investment in IT is designed to hit the P&L positively each and every single day. And if it's not, or you're not getting that ROI that you should, then maybe increasing the spending will get you a better ROI on it, and it'll actually save you money.
And do you think it's, these pieces of education that has helped you to grow Kirkham IronTech into what it is today, is working on that education to be able to grow?
Yeah, that's my whole mission in life these days, is being chief evangelical, or whatever it's called, chief evangelist officer, right? And I have done literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of continuing legal education, continuing education for accounting firms, and the list just goes on and on. And it's my job to, they're there to learn about cybersecurity. I'm going to give them the tools from a 50,000-foot view, the things that they need to know to look for. I'm not going to make them a cybersecurity expert in an hour and a half, no more than they'd make me an attorney in an hour, right? And but I'm trying to give them that 50,000-foot managerial and leadership view of how you select the right service provider to go with for these things. And quite simply, especially from IT, but even in cybersecurity, most service firms are they're not thinking in terms of a holistic approach, and that benchmarking and budgeting and those things are so critical to the success of both of those investments.
Yeah, yeah. And to your point of education, you spending so much of your time working on educating. Talk to me about, the books that you've got to your left.
Well, they're both Amazon #1 bestsellers. The first one is the Cyber Pandemic Survival Guide, and that book is a webinar that we used to use, the 5 things that you got to put in place, and it goes into a lot more detail. And the concept is based upon what we experienced with COVID and what would happen if it was a computer virus instead of a human virus. Well, you're talking hours and days to spread around the world on the outside, and it could be catastrophic. But if you take these steps, it's going to protect you from the run-of-the-mill everyday stuff that we all have to worry about, but you'll be much more likely to surviving in the case of a widespread, virus that gets loose on computers. Now, the other one's Hack the Rich, and that is about the unique risk profile that high net worth individuals have. We deal with some, family businesses that do tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in commercial real estate or whatever it may be, but they still run their business as a little family organization, not realizing that they are on list to be targeted as, to be attacked. And so they do have special risk considerations. But yeah, both of those books came out last year. So.
Yeah, I love it. I love your passion behind the importance of cybersecurity and educating, individuals of, it sounds like, every walk of life on the importance of cybersecurity for personal reasons, but also too, it sounds like most importantly, businesses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're on the topic of who it's for, these books are for the layperson. They're not written for my peers. There's nothing worse than hearing a bunch of 3-letter anagrams or acronyms from IT people, and they're talking, speaking about things no one really understands. And there's a fictional component in the book with the same character through both books. I'm working on a third book that's going to expand on the fictional component. So I've been told that couldn't put it down. They wanted to find out what was happening to the mayor or to this gray hat hacker and what's going on with him. And so I wanted to make it readable and accessible. Yeah.
I love that. And it sounds too like using fiction to be able to tell the stories and tell the importance of protecting yourself.
Exactly. And we go through the international standards around cybersecurity best practices around both of the IT and cybersecurity, and just the right way to do things. Talk about best in class, administrative policies and technical protection controls and all of that. That's, we're best in class company, we're best practices company, and we adhere to international standards.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, if people wanted to go to learn more about Kirkham IronTech, where would they go to learn more?
KirkhamIronTech.com is a great place to start. There's literally hundreds of hours of YouTube videos that you can find on our resources link there, as well as other information and statistics. And of course, reach out if you've got any questions at all. We're happy to talk anytime, because the general public just doesn't realize how serious this risk is. They think it's going to happen only to the Colonial Pipelines or the JBS Meat Supply Company and, the things that hit CNN and New York Times, Washington Post. But in reality, most attacks are to small to medium-sized business, and they're automated at scale. They're high volume, highly automated attacks. They don't know who you are. They don't care who you are. They think in terms of conversion rates. So if they've got an email list with 100,000 emails, they get a 1% conversion rate. That's 1,000 victims. They collect an average of $10,000 per victim. That's a $10 million payday. And that's a low payday in the ransom world criminal industry. That's low. That's low. Yeah, there was a group that grossed $3.5 billion worldwide about 3 years ago. And each of the two masterminds netted $300 million apiece. And it's not the big guys. I can't stress this enough. And so that's why I kind of make it my mission to raise awareness that this can happen to anyone, and you got to get ahead of it. You just really got to get ahead of it.
And Kirkham IronTech is the way to do that, right?
I would think so. It's my favorite.
Well, awesome. Well, Tom, as we start to wrap this conversation, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, either about the importance of cybersecurity, Kirkham IronTech, anything that you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, once again, I just can't reiterate it enough. You need a risk analysis to begin with. You've got to understand where your vulnerabilities are, what your weaknesses. If you're reusing passwords or you don't have some of these advanced protection tools, it's so super critical to do a risk assessment right at the very get-go. And that's international standards, and that's what you do. And so I would encourage, and most places will do those for free. So I would encourage you to get with a service provider and get one done. At least know the condition of your ship, right? You got to know what your ship is before you set sail. And the same thing with your law firm, accounting firm, or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tom, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate all of your insights on, your books, the historical facts of, different cybersecurity attacks. I find that absolutely fascinating. I certainly hope it never happens to anyone that I know or love, but however, I do find it, interesting learning more, and I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge about Kirkham IronTech, about, your expertise on Business Ninjas today. So I appreciate you being on the show.
Well, once again, it's my pleasure, and happy to help out anytime.
Yeah, great to have you.